You are standing in a frozen valley. The wind bites at your skin. The cold is absolute. Your breath forms thick clouds in the freezing air. You see a warm fire burning in the far distance. The people gathered around it are not quite like you. Who are these strange people in the dark? Did your ancestors kill them all? For a very long time, this was the accepted story. The historical narrative was simple and brutal. You were the ultimate conqueror. You were the superior species. You walked out of Africa and wiped out everything in your path. It makes for a very compelling and violent story. But the truth hidden in your DNA is far more complicated. Look at your hands right now. Look at the way your fingers move. Your biology is a complex mosaic. It is a puzzle made of ancient pieces. How much of you belongs to ghosts? To answer this, you have to go back. You must travel back roughly 50,000 years. Europe is completely locked in a brutal ice age. The landscape is unforgiving and harsh. Massive megafauna roam the frozen tundra looking for food. Survival is a daily calculation of calories. Your ancestors are entirely new here. They are Homo sapiens from warmer climates. They have long limbs built for running. They carry a completely different toolkit of stone. They step into a world that is already occupied. The Neanderthals are already here waiting. They have been here for hundreds of thousands of years. They are robust and incredibly strong. They have barrel chests designed to retain heat. They are perfectly adapted to the bitter cold. They are not mindless brutes at all. Do you think you could survive an ice age winter? They do it successfully for generations. They bury their dead with care. They make complex art on cave walls. They understand the landscape better than you do. So what exactly happens when these two groups meet? Does it end in immediate and total slaughter? The traditional archaeological view leaned heavily toward conflict. Researchers found ancient bones with deep marks of violence. They saw the Neanderthal fossil record suddenly stop. They assumed a prehistoric genocide committed by your ancestors. It was easy to project modern cruelty onto ancient encounters. But science does not care about modern dramatic narratives. Science only cares about the physical evidence. The true story of human evolution was rewritten in a laboratory. It was not rewritten on a massive ancient battlefield. Let us look at the groundbreaking work of Svante Pääbo. He is a brilliant geneticist at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. He accomplished something that many thought was absolutely impossible. He successfully sequenced the entire Neanderthal genome from ancient bone. He extracted this ancient DNA from fossils found in Vindija Cave. This cave is located in modern-day Croatia. These specific bone fragments were tens of thousands of years old. The DNA inside them was shattered and heavily degraded. It was massively contaminated by cave dirt and bacteria. But his dedicated team managed to map the genetic sequence anyway. What did they find when they compared it to your modern DNA? The startling results completely shattered the prehistoric genocide theory. If your ancestors had simply killed every Neanderthal, your DNA would be pure. It would be purely Homo sapiens without any mixture. But it is not pure at all. If you are of non-African descent, you carry distinct Neanderthal DNA. You carry somewhere between 1 and 2% of their genetic code. This undeniable biological fact means your ancestors did not just fight them. They sat down by their warm fires in the dark. They shared the meat of the hunt. They had children with them. Does this shocking revelation change how you view your history? It absolutely should change your entire perspective. It reveals a level of ancient intimacy we never expected to find. But the Neanderthals were not the only other humans on the planet. The ancient world was surprisingly crowded with different variations of humanity. There were multiple distinct human species walking the earth at once. Imagine traveling far east into the jagged mountains of Siberia. The mountain air is thin and hard to breathe. The biting cold is absolutely piercing to your skin. Here lies the massive entrance to Denisova Cave. It is a massive dark cavern overlooking a vast river valley. For many decades, dedicated archaeologists slowly dug through its freezing dirt. They found ancient stone tools crafted by unknown hands. They found the shattered animal bones of ancient prehistoric meals. Then in the year 2008, They found something tiny. They found a single pinky bone belonging to a young girl. They sent this tiny bone fragment to Svante Pääbo and his team. They fully expected the DNA test to prove it was Neanderthal. It was not a Neanderthal at all. It was an entirely new and unknown species of human being. We now call this mysterious group of ancient people the Denisovans. We know almost absolutely nothing about what they actually looked like. We currently have only a few oversized teeth and tiny bone fragments. But we do have their complete genetic codes saved in modern databases. And just like the famous Neanderthals, the mysterious Denisovans did not disappear. They actively live on right now inside the bodies of modern humans. People living today in places like Melanesia carry their ancient genes. They carry up to 6% Denisovan DNA in their modern bodies. Your wandering ancestors eventually met these strange people in the mountains. Your ancestors actively mated with them and had healthy children together. Did they also fight terrible wars against them over land and food? Almost certainly they did. Human nature has always been inherently violent and territorial. Territory is absolutely essential for long-term survival in the wild. Clashes over these precious natural resources were completely inevitable. When a river valley only has enough deer to feed one tribe, conflict happens. It is a mathematical guarantee of violence and bloodshed. But the hard genetic evidence proves that war was not the only interaction. There was also deep cooperation and mutual aid between different species. There was biological and cultural assimilation over thousands of years. The ancient prehistoric world was not just a massive bloody battlefield. It was actually a complex melting pot of different human evolutionary lineages. Let us look closely at another fascinating piece of this prehistoric puzzle. Consider the detailed research of Tom Hyam working at Oxford University. He is a world-renowned expert in the complex science of radiocarbon dating. He developed brand new laboratory techniques to date ancient bones precisely. The old methods of carbon dating were highly susceptible to modern contamination. Just a tiny drop of modern sweat could ruin the entire ancient sample. He desperately wanted to know exactly when the Neanderthals finally vanished. He wanted to scientifically measure the exact timeline of the biological overlap. Tom Hyam carefully mapped out dozens of different archaeological dig sites. He traveled all across the European continent gathering tiny bone samples. His final scientific findings were completely astonishing to the historical community. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals actively overlapped in Europe for up to 5,000 years. 5,000 long years of living side by side in the exact same forests. That specific amount of time is longer than all of recorded modern history. Do you still honestly think it was a rapid and violently bloody conquest? It was not a lightning-fast war of total global annihilation. It was a very slow and very gradual demographic replacement. It was a complex biological assimilation that took hundreds of generations. But why did they eventually disappear while your direct ancestors managed to thrive? The final answer to this question is not simple or easy to define. It is a highly complex combination of many different environmental and social factors. Massive climate change played a truly massive and destructive role in their downfall. The brutal ice age was finally ending and global temperatures were shifting wildly. The dense ancient forests that the Neanderthals hunted in were dying out. The landscape was rapidly opening up into vast and empty grassy steppes. Your agile ancestors were already perfectly adapted to running on these open plains. They hunted very differently using lighter weapons designed for long-distance throwing. They organized their social groups in completely different and much larger ways. They maintained much larger and more complex social trade networks across the landscape. They constantly shared vital survival information across vast geographical distances. If a small Neanderthal group ran out of food, they simply starved to death. If a larger Homo sapiens group ran out of food, they asked their neighbors. Complex social networking was undoubtedly your ancestors' greatest and most powerful weapon. Let us recreate a typical day in this fascinating overlapping ancient world. You are walking slowly through a very dense and dark European forest. You suddenly hear the loud snapping of heavy branches just ahead of you. You immediately freeze in place and stop your breathing. You tightly grip the wooden shaft of your stone-tipped hunting spear. Through the thick trees, you carefully observe a completely different group of hunters. They are noticeably shorter and much more heavily built than you are. Their heavy brow ridges cast dark shadows over their deep-set eyes. They are effortlessly carrying a massive dead deer carcass over their wide shoulders. You do not immediately rush forward to attack them with your sharp spear. You stay hidden and you quietly observe their fluid movements and actions. You quickly recognize that they are incredibly skilled and capable survivors. You realize they deeply know exactly where the massive animal herds are moving. You desperately need that vital geographical knowledge to keep your own family alive. Perhaps you cautiously approach and trade a specialized sharp flint blade for meat. Perhaps you end up sharing a warm and safe fire with them that night. Over many long generations, your small tribe and their small tribe slowly blend together. The distinct and heavy Neanderthal physical traits slowly dilute and fade away. They completely merge into the much larger Homo sapiens breeding population forever. But what exactly happened to the other mysterious human species that lived elsewhere? What about the ancient species that did not eventually assimilate into your bloodline? Travel far down south to the tropical and isolated islands of modern-day Indonesia. The dense island jungle is incredibly thick and highly difficult to navigate. The heavy tropical humidity is absolutely suffocating and makes you sweat constantly. Deep inside the dark limestone cave of Liang Bua, archaeologists made a shocking discovery. This massive cave is located on the remote and beautiful island of Flores. In the year 2003, they dug up a very tiny ancient skull. It belonged to a fully grown adult female human being. She was barely 3 feet tall when she was fully grown and standing upright. The scientists quickly named this brand new miniature species Homo floresiensis. The popular global media immediately started calling them the ancient hobbits of evolution. They lived completely isolated on this tiny tropical island for hundreds of thousands of years. They were a perfect example of a biological process called insular dwarfism. When large animals are trapped on small islands with limited food, they shrink over time. They actively hunted miniature dwarf elephants that roamed the thick island jungle. They constantly evaded terrifying giant predatory storks that wanted to eat them alive. They shared their island home with massive venomous Komodo dragons that hunted in the brush. They successfully survived in this isolated paradise until about 50,000 years ago. This specific date is right around the exact same time your modern ancestors arrived. Did your aggressive ancestors immediately kill all of the peaceful hobbits when they landed? There is absolutely no direct physical evidence of any warfare found in Liang Bua Cave. There are absolutely no tiny fossilized skeletons found with modern stone spear wounds. The dirt layers of the cave do not show a massive and sudden violent slaughter. But the archaeological timing of their sudden disappearance is highly suspicious to modern researchers. Whenever migrating Homo sapiens finally arrive in any brand new pristine environment, extinctions follow. We dramatically and irreversibly change the delicate biological balance of the local ecosystem. We aggressively hunt and consume the exact same game animals that the native species need. We quickly monopolize and control all of the available fresh water sources in the area. We do not always have to directly kill our environmental competitors with violence to win. We just have to successfully outcompete them for the limited daily calories in the environment. If you completely take away another species' primary food source, they will eventually vanish forever. This is the truly dark and unsettling side of our own human evolutionary success story. We are undoubtedly the ultimate invasive species on the face of the entire planet. We are highly adaptable to any environment and we are completely relentless in our endless expansion. So we must return to the very first question we asked at the beginning. Did ancient humans aggressively kill off the other human species that shared the ancient world? Yes, they did in many different situations and in many different geographical locations. In some specific times and places, there was undoubtedly terrible bloodshed and brutal territorial war. But it was absolutely not a systematic and planned global genocide of the other species. The true historical reality of our ancient past is much more nuanced and much more complex. We simply outsurvive them in a rapidly and violently changing global climate system. We heavily outsocialize them by building larger and more connected community support networks. And in many documented cases, we simply absorb them directly into our own expanding genetic lineage. The biological boundaries between the different human species were surprisingly blurry and constantly shifting. They were incredibly fluid and totally dependent on the specific local environment and social situations. You are absolutely not a purebred Homo sapiens standing at the very top of an evolutionary tree. You are actually an ancient and complex hybrid composed of many different lost peoples. You carry the lasting genetic legacy of the exact same people your ancestors supposedly destroyed. The ancient Neanderthals gave you specific immune system genes that actively help your body today. They help your modern white blood cells fight off modern deadly viruses and bacterial infections. The mysterious Denisovans gave some modern humans the unique genetic ability to easily survive altitude. They allow modern Tibetan people to breathe easily in the thin air of the high Himalayan mountains. They are not truly extinct and gone forever from the face of the living earth. They are standing right here in this room with you at this very moment. They are physically flowing in your warm blood as it pumps through your modern veins. They are actively working inside your complex modern immune system every single day of your life. They are heavily involved in the exact way your physical body reacts to the hot summer sun. The ancient prehistoric world is not a dead and buried thing of the distant past. It is actively walking around the modern world right now inside of your physical body. The strange people sitting by the warm fire in that freezing prehistoric valley were not rivals. They were actually your distant and ancient grandparents merely waiting for you to join them. Your body remembers exactly what your history books have completely forgotten over the centuries. You wake up every single morning carrying the biological ghosts of 100 different ancient tribes. You walk down the busy modern street with the exact same bone structure shaped by brutal winters. You look at glowing computer screens with eyes built to track prey through dense freezing forests. The survival mechanisms of a million long-gone ancestors are constantly firing inside your modern brain. When you feel a sudden irrational fear of the dark empty spaces, it is the ancient hobbit. It is the tiny human running in terror from the giant predatory stork on the island. When you naturally crave high-calorie fatty foods, it is the ancient Neanderthal desperately preparing for winter. It is the deep biological fear of a freezing ice age winter that might never actually end. When you instinctively seek out the comforting warmth of a close social group, it is the Homo sapiens network. It is the ancient social survival network keeping you completely safe from the freezing cold outside. The past is never truly dead, and it is not even completely past in any real sense. It is a living biological document continuously written and rewritten into the very core of your cells. Every single time you successfully fight off a simple winter cold, you should silently thank them. You should thank your long-lost Neanderthal ancestors for their invaluable genetic gifts of survival. Every single time you easily breathe the thin air on a high mountain hike, you should remember them. You should thank the mysterious Denisovans who gave you that completely invisible biological superpower of adaptation. We are the final surviving product of a massive and brutal prehistoric experiment in adaptation and survival. We are the last remaining children of a beautifully complex and violently chaotic ancient prehistoric world. The true story of human evolution is not a straight upward line of constant triumph and endless conquest. It is a wildly branching and tangled bush of desperate survival and surprising intimacy in the dark. We did not simply conquer the ancient world and all of its beautifully diverse ancient inhabitants. We absorbed the ancient world and carried it with us into the brightly lit modern future. So the next time you look into a shiny mirror, do not just see a modern human being. Do not just see a person living a highly safe and heavily insulated modern daily life. Look much deeper and try to see the vast and ancient multitudes that are staring quietly back at you. Look at the living, breathing museum of human history contained entirely within your own soft skin. You are standing in a frozen valley. The wind bites at your skin. The people around the fire are you.